The afternoon sun cast long shadows across downtown Seattle as Daniel Carter stepped out of the towering headquarters of Aurora Tech. For the first time in years, he dismissed his security detail, an uncharacteristic move for the tech mogul, but the boardroom's suffocating debates about quarterly projections had left him craving the raw pulse of the city. He took a detour through Capitol Hill, where the scent of artisan coffee mingled with the distant hum of street musicians. Then he saw her, a slip of a girl perched on a bus bench near Pike Street, her scuffed Mary Janes dangling inches above the pavement. She couldn't have been older than 6, her strawberry blonde hair secured by a frayed ribbon that matched her faded sundress. What struck him first wasn't her stillness. It was the way her tiny hands clutched a wrinkled juice box like a lifeline. Daniel almost walked past, until the juice box hit the sidewalk with a splatter. The child listed sideways like a sapling in a storm. He lunged his tailored sleeve, grazing the bench's rusted metal, as he caught her millimeters from impact. Her skin burned against his palms, feverish, too bright against the pallor of her cheeks. When her eyelids fluttered open, he froze. Those eyes, not just blue, but the exact shade of glacial ice he'd seen only once before in the mirror the morning after his transplant surgery. "Hey, kiddo," he murmured, tapping her wrist with 2 fingers, a paramedic trick he'd learned during late-night ER rotations in his med school days. Her pulse fluttered like a trapped hummingbird. Across the street, a barista peered through the cafe window but made no move to help. Daniel's throat tightened. He spotted something, then a hospital bracelet, half hidden under her sleeve, the name Lucy, printed in smudged ink. "Lucy," he said louder this time. Her fingers twitched in response. That's when he noticed the backpack beside her, its zipper gaping to reveal a stuffed rabbit with one missing ear. Beneath it lay a folded note. The wind snatched the paper the moment he reached for it, but not before he caught the handwritten plea. "If found, call." A siren wailed in the distance. Daniel cradled Lucy closer, his mind racing. Somewhere in the city, a desperate parent was searching for this child. And somehow, against all odds, she'd collapsed into the arms of the one man whose borrowed heartbeat might just understand why hers was failing. The coincidence was impossible. But as her breath hitched against his shoulder, Daniel made a decision that would unravel both their lives. He flagged down a taxi, not to the nearest hospital, but to the one where his own second chance had begun 12 years ago. The taxi screeched to a halt outside Seattle Children's Hospital, its tires kissing the curb with a jolt. Daniel barely registered the driver's outstretched hand. He was already surging toward the entrance, Lucy's limp body curled against his chest. Her fever had spiked during the ride. He could feel it in the damp heat seeping through his shirt. A memory flashed, his own first night post-transplant, the way his body had burned as if rejecting the foreign heart. The ER doors hissed open, unleashing a wave of chilled air that smelled of bleach and desperation. A triage nurse snapped to attention at the sight of them. "Found her unconscious near Pike Street." Daniel barked, his voice rougher than intended. "No ID, just this." He jerked his chin toward Lucy's backpack, where the one-eared rabbit now dangled precariously from the zipper. As they rushed down the corridor, fluorescent lights strobing overhead, Lucy suddenly stirred. Her fingers clawed weakly at Daniel's tie. "Daddy?" she whispered, the words slurred but clear. Daniel's breath caught. Before he could respond, a commotion erupted at the nurse's station. A disheveled man in a grease-stained mechanic's shirt was shoving past security, his voice raw with panic. "My daughter's here. They said someone brought in a little girl." The moment their eyes locked, Daniel knew. The man's gaze dropped to Lucy's face, then flew back up, widening in recognition. Not of Daniel, but of the scar barely visible above his collar, the telltale mark of a thoracic incision. The mechanic staggered like he'd been punched. "Oh my God!" he choked out. "You're him, the donor!" A monitor began beeping wildly as Lucy's fingers tightened around Daniel's. The nurse yanked the crash cart forward, but Daniel couldn't move. 12 years of anonymous organ donation protocols shattered in an instant. Somewhere in this child's fragile chest, a piece of his late wife's heart was beating. And the man now sobbing against the wall, the man who smelled of motor oil and maple syrup, was the reason it still could. Dr. Reeves materialized with a syringe of epinephrine, her calm voice slicing through the chaos. "Mr. Carter, we need you to let go now." But the mechanic was already reaching out his calloused hand, brushing Daniel's sleeve. "Please," he begged, tears cutting through the grime on his face. "She's all I've got left of her mom." The unspoken truth hung between them that the woman who died in that long-ago car accident had given Lucy more than just life. She'd given them both a second chance. Daniel released his grip. As the Code Blue team swarmed, he found himself gripping the mechanic's shoulder instead. The mural's cartoon octopus grinned down at them, its tentacles wrapped around a single word: hope. The social worker's pen hovered over the intake form when the cardiac monitor let out a shrill alarm. Lily's small body arched off the bed as if pulled by invisible strings. "V-fib," Dr. Reeves shouted, lunging for the crash cart. Daniel's vision tunneled. The same arrhythmia that had killed his wife years ago now danced across Lily's monitor in lethal green spikes. He didn't realize he'd moved until his palm was pressed against the glass partition, his reflection superimposed over the chaos. The defibrillator charged with a high-pitched whine. "Clear!" The shock jolted through Lily's tiny frame. 1 second, 2, then a weak but steady beep. The mechanic, who'd been restrained by a nurse, broke free and collapsed into the chair beside her bed, his work boots leaving streaks on the linoleum. "She's got my wife's condition," he gasped, clutching Lily's unresponsive hand. "The doctors said she might inherit it." Daniel felt the truth like a physical blow. The same genetic heart defect. The same cruel twist of fate. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the worn St. Christopher medal he'd carried since his transplant, the one his wife had given him for their anniversary. Without a word, he pressed it into the mechanic's grease-stained palm. Across the room, the social worker's clipboard clattered to the floor. She was staring at Lily's newly printed wristband. "This can't be right," she murmured. "The system shows a Lily Carter was discharged from foster care 3 days ago." Daniel's blood ran cold. Carter, his last name. The coincidence was impossible until the mechanic lifted his tear-streaked face. "Her full name's Lillian Carter Wilson," he whispered. "We named her after the donor's wife. The letter from the transplant center said her name was Claire Carter." The hospital room tilted. Daniel's knees hit the floor just as Lily's eyes fluttered open. Her first conscious word wasn't daddy or water, but butterfly, whispered toward the ceiling where a lone monarch sticker clung from some long-ago child's stay. Claire's favorite. The one she'd drawn on every get-well card during her own hospitalizations. Dr. Reeves froze mid-command, the puzzle pieces crashing together. "Mr. Wilson," she said slowly, "when exactly did your wife pass?" The answer hung in the air like a ghost. The same date. The same hour. The same storm-slicked highway where Daniel's car had spun out and Claire's had swerved to avoid him. Somewhere beyond the sobs and beeping machines, a janitor's radio played Claire's wedding song. Lily's fingers twitched toward the sound, her blue eyes, Claire's eyes locking onto Daniel's with eerie recognition. The social worker's pen finally hit the floor. No forms could explain this. No paperwork could contain it. Some bonds the universe insisted on forging twice. The social worker's words hung in the air like a verdict. Daniel's fingers tightened around the armrest as Margaret flipped a page in her folder. A Polaroid photo slid out, faded, creased at the corners. A young woman with Lily's sapphire eyes smiled beside a birthday cake with 5 candles. The timestamp read exactly 1 year ago today. "Amelia Evans passed away 3 months back," Margaret said quietly. "Overdose. We placed Lily with a foster family, but..." She hesitated, tapping a police report tucked behind the photo. "She ran away last week. The foster parents never filed a missing persons report." A vein pulsed in Daniel's temple. The monitor's steady beep suddenly felt accusatory. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a yellowed newspaper clipping his wife Claire's obituary. The dates aligned perfectly. Amelia Evans had died the same night Claire's heart had been transplanted into his chest. Margaret's breath hitched when she saw the connection. Before she could speak, Lily's heart monitor spiked. The child's eyes flew open, locking onto Daniel with startling clarity. "You smell like rain," she murmured, her voice hoarse but certain. "Like the lady in my dreams." Daniel's throat closed. Claire had always worn that citrus rain perfume, the one he'd kept in his dresser for 12 years. Across the room, the hospital TV flickered to life on its own volume, blaring. A news anchor's voice cut through the silence. "Breaking news: remains found in the Willamette Forest have been identified as prominent cardiologist Dr. Nathan Cole missing since..." The screen flashed a photo of Lily's doctor, Reeves's mentor, the man who'd performed Daniel's transplant. Margaret stood so fast, her chair toppled over. "That shelter address," she whispered, flipping frantically through her notes. "Willow House doesn't exist, but there's a Willow Medical Clinic, Dr. Cole's private practice." Lily's small hand suddenly gripped Daniel's pinky with surprising strength. "The bad man took Mommy's medicine," she whispered. "He said her heart was special." The cardiac monitor began screaming as Lily's temperature spiked to 106. Doctors flooded the room, but Daniel barely heard them, because now he understood. The overdose wasn't an accident. Claire's heart hadn't just saved him, it had marked Amelia Evans as a target. And now Lily, with her mother's eyes and a donor's cells in her veins, was the last loose thread of a conspiracy that went far deeper than any of them imagined. As the Code Blue team worked, Daniel pressed Claire's St. Christopher medal into Lily's palm. The moment the medal touched her skin, the monitor stabilized. Dr. Reeves staggered back because the EKG now showed 2 distinct heartbeats, superimposed, one child's, one adult's, both perfectly in sync. The air in the room turned thick as syrup. Daniel's borrowed heart hammered against his ribs, Amelia Evans' heart, as Margaret's words carved through him like a scalpel. "Car accident, 30 years old. A year ago." The dates aligned with brutal precision. His transplant surgery, the second chance he'd been given, had been Lily's first great loss. Then came the detail that shattered him. Diane Carter. Daniel's voice cracked. He knew that name. The nurse who'd sat with him through his first night post-op, who'd held his hand when the pain meds wore off, who'd whispered, "Your donor would be proud." Margaret stiffened. "You know her." Before Daniel could answer, Lily's small fingers twitched against the sheets. Her eyelids fluttered open, those impossible blue eyes locking onto his with eerie focus. "Aunt Diane hid me," she whispered, "from the doctor who made Mommy sleep forever." The cardiac monitor erupted in chaos. Dr. Reeves shouted for sedation, but Daniel was already reaching into his phone, pulling up the faded selfie he'd taken with Nurse Carter after his discharge. Lily's gasp was answer enough. Margaret's folder hit the floor with a slap. "Dear God," she breathed. The missing police report she'd been holding fluttered down, revealing a circled address, an abandoned medical complex on the outskirts of Portland. The same complex where Dr. Cole's car had been found. Daniel's vision swam. Pieces clicked into place with terrifying clarity. The shelter was a front. Diane Carter hadn't disappeared. She'd gone underground to protect Lily from whoever had harvested Amelia's heart. And now that same network was coming for the only living person who carried Amelia's DNA. The hospital intercom crackled to life with a code white security alert. Through the window, Daniel saw black SUVs screeching into the ambulance bay. Lily's monitor flatlined for 3 endless seconds before rebooting with a rhythm that mirrored Daniel's own heartbeat exactly. Dr. Reeves froze, stethoscope dangling. "That's impossible. Her ECG is showing your atrial fibrillation pattern from post-transplant." Daniel finished grimly. He yanked the IV from Lily's arm and scooped her up, her tiny body radiating fever heat. Somewhere in this hospital, a door burst open. Boots pounded down the corridor. Margaret blocked the door, her CPS badge held up like a shield. "Take the service elevator," she hissed, pressing a keycard into Daniel's palm. "Room B42 has a fire exit to the parking garage." As they fled, Lily's whisper ghosted against Daniel's collarbone. "Mommy said you'd come." The words unlocked a memory. Amelia's final message, the one he'd memorized but never understood until now. "Live for both of you." Not both of them. Both of you! Daniel ran faster. The truth was a drumbeat in his chest. Amelia hadn't just given him her heart. She'd entrusted him with her daughter, and the men storming the hospital would burn the world down to get them both. The fluorescent lights buzzed like angry hornets as Daniel watched Lily's chest rise and fall. Margaret's business card lay heavy in his pocket, along with the Polaroid of Amelia he'd slipped from the file when no one was looking. The woman in the photo had Lily's smile, but her eyes held a sadness the birthday candles couldn't illuminate. A rustling sound snapped his attention back to the bed. Lily was awake, her small fingers plucking at the hospital bracelet. "Mr." Her voice was hoarse from dehydration. "Does your heart hurt too?" Daniel's hand flew to his chest before he could stop it. The scar beneath his shirt burned as if remembering. "Sometimes," he admitted. Lily nodded solemnly. "Mommy said hearts remember." She pointed to the TV mounted in the corner where a muted news report showed police tape around a boarded-up clinic. The Chiron read, "Authorities investigate illegal organ harvesting ring." That's where the bad man took her. Ice flooded Daniel's veins. The building matched the address Margaret had circled. He leaned closer. "Lily, do you know—" The door burst open. A nurse rushed in, face ashen. "Mr. Carter, you need to leave now." She thrust a set of car keys at him. "Men just stormed the CPS office looking for Margaret. They have hospital badges, but security says they're fake." Down the hall, glass shattered. Lily's monitor began shrieking as her pulse skyrocketed. Daniel didn't think he acted. Wrapping the IV pole in one hand and scooping Lily up with the other, he bolted for the service elevator. The stairwell door crashed open behind them. A voice barked, "Stop, that child is a material witness." Lily buried her face in Daniel's neck. "It's him," she whimpered. "The doctor who made Mommy sleep." The elevator doors slid shut just as a gloved hand reached through. Daniel's pounding heart synced with Lily's as the car descended, two rhythms becoming one. The keys in his hand bore a fob with the logo of Diane Carter's old nursing home. Somewhere below, tires screeched. Somewhere above, men were tearing apart Lily's hospital room. And cradled between past and future, Daniel understood with crystalline clarity, Amelia hadn't just given him her heart. She'd entrusted him with her unfinished story. As the elevator hit ground level, Lily lifted her head. The first unafraid words she'd spoken since collapsing at the bus stop slipped out like a secret. "Diane said you'd know where to go." Because of course she had. The nurse who'd tended his transplant wounds knew the truth that the man carrying Amelia Evans' heart would recognize her daughter's danger before anyone else. The car keys weren't just an escape. They were a baton pass. The doors opened to a rain-slicked alley. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. Daniel tightened his grip on Lily and ran toward the battered Toyota with the dented bumper, the same car Diane Carter had driven to all his post-op appointments. The glove compartment would hold answers. The trunk would hold weapons, and the back seat, that would hold the beginning of everything. The rain drummed against the Toyota's roof like impatient fingers as Daniel fumbled with Diane's keys. Lily's small hands clutched the St. Christopher medal between them, its chain tangled in her IV tubing. "Mommy's heart glows in you," she murmured, pressing her ear to his chest. "I heard it singing when you carried me." Daniel froze. The same words Claire had whispered to him in the ICU after his transplant, words he'd never told another soul. His fingers found the glove compartment release. Inside lay a manila envelope, its surface smeared with what looked like blood. The documents inside sent his world tilting. 1. A coroner's report with Amelia's name, cause of death altered from blunt force trauma to vehicular accident. 2. A photo of Dr. Cole accepting a briefcase from a man in scrubs outside Willow Medical Clinic. 3. And at the bottom, a handwritten note in Diane's looping script. "Daniel, if you're reading this, they've found Lily. Drive to the coordinates on the key fob. The cabin has everything you need. Don't trust anyone at Seattle Memorial." Lily tugged his sleeve. "The bad doctor's coming." Through the rain-streaked windshield, Daniel saw them, three figures in hospital whites, sprinting across the parking lot, their faces obscured by surgical masks. The leader carried something metallic in his right hand. The engine roared to life as Daniel stomped on the gas. Tires screamed against wet asphalt. In the rearview mirror, one pursuer yanked out a walkie-talkie. Lily climbed into the front seat, her hospital gown fluttering like a ghost. She pressed her small palm over Daniel's racing heart. "Don't be scared," she whispered. "Mommy and the pretty lady are keeping us safe." Daniel's breath caught. The pretty lady. Claire's nickname from their first date. A sudden warmth spread through his chest as the GPS flickered to life, revealing a route deep into the Cascade Mountains. Somewhere ahead lay answers. Somewhere behind a network of lies unraveling. And between them a connection deeper than blood, stronger than death. As the Toyota vanished into the storm, Lily hummed a lullaby Daniel didn't recognize. Until the chorus hit. The same melody Claire used to sing. The same tune Amelia had referenced in her final letter. The car's clock blinked 11:11, the exact time stamped on both their death certificates. Some bonds it seemed even the grave couldn't sever. The coffee in Daniel's hand had gone cold 3 hours ago. He barely noticed as Dr. Reeves slid a new file across the table, a coroner's report with Amelia's photo paperclipped to the front. The time of death hit him first, 11:11 p.m., the exact minute Claire had flatlined in the adjacent trauma bay. Margaret tapped a highlighted line. "This says Ms. Evans was DOA, but the EMT report contradicts that." She flipped to another page where someone had scrawled in red ink, "Pupils reactive upon transport. Lost vitals en route." Daniel's pulse roared in his ears. They'd harvested Amelia's heart while she was still alive. The door burst open before he could speak. A nurse, pale trembling, thrust a newborn-sized hospital bracelet at Dr. Reeves. "Sir, you need to see this. They just pulled it from the archives." The plastic band read Lily Evans in faded ink. Date of birth 5 years ago. Room number the exact cardiac recovery suite where Daniel had convalesced after his transplant. Margaret's pen clattered to the floor. "That's impossible. The records show Lily was born at Willow Medical." Doctor finished grimly. He turned the bracelet over, revealing a tiny barcode. When he scanned it with his phone, the screen populated with a file labeled Project Second Beat. The video that loaded showed Dr. Cole leaning over an unconscious Amelia, speaking to someone off camera. "The recipient is prepped in Suite 4. Harvest the heart at 11:10 sharp. We need the stem cells before electrical activity ceases." Lily's monitor began shrieking. Daniel reached her just as her eyes flew open, fully alert for the first time. She grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. "Mommy told me about the golden thread," she whispered. "It connects people who belong together." Her other hand pressed against his scar. "Can't you feel it?" And God help him he could. A warmth radiated from her touch, traveling up his arm in visible golden tendrils that matched the IV fluid snaking toward her veins. The cardiac monitor flatlined for 3 thunderous seconds before displaying a single, impossible reading. Dual ECG patterns detected. Somewhere down the hall, an alarm blared. The overhead lights flickered as if straining under some unseen current. Dr. Reeves staggered back from the monitor, crossing himself. Margaret's voice cut through the chaos. "Daniel, we have to move her now. Those men who came earlier, they weren't after Lily." She yanked open her blazer, revealing a badge Daniel had never noticed before. "Federal Organ Trafficking Task Force." "They're after you," she said. "You're the only surviving recipient of Cole's illegal transplants, and your heart holds the proof." As armed agents swarmed the hallway, Lily's fingers tightened around Daniel's. The golden glow intensified, weaving their hands together in luminous filaments. The last thing he heard before the world went white was her whisper. "Don't let go. The thread knows the way." The fluorescent lights flickered as Daniel reached into his wallet. His fingers brushed past credit cards, his driver's license finally closing around the worn hospital wristband he'd kept for 12 years. The one with recipient 04 printed in fading ink. "I am legally connected to her," he said, sliding the band across the table. "By blood." Margaret's breath caught as she examined the barcode. When she scanned it with her phone, the screen populated with a document titled Project Second Beat, Genetic Continuity Protocol. Dr. Reeves's voice came from the doorway, suddenly hoarse. "My God, Cole didn't just transplant the heart. He spliced the donor's DNA into your bone marrow." Lily chose that moment to sit straight up in bed. No grogginess, no disorientation. Her blue eyes locked onto Daniel with eerie focus. "That's why they need us," she said calmly. "Mommy's cells make the golden thread, and you're the only one who grew enough to share." The heart monitor began displaying dual waveforms again. Daniel's phone buzzed with an alert from his security team. "Unauthorized access at your penthouse. Intruders bypassed biometrics using your cardiac signature." Margaret's badge suddenly made sense. This wasn't just about organ trafficking, it was about weaponizing cellular memory. The golden glow wasn't magic, it was engineered. And Lily wasn't just Amelia's daughter. She was the blueprint. Daniel stood so fast his chair toppled. "We're leaving, now." Margaret blocked the door. "You can't just—" "I can." He yanked open his shirt, revealing the scar. "This heart makes me her legal next of kin under Project Second Beat's inheritance clause. Check Cole's research files." A stunned intern rushed in waving a tablet. The screen showed a live feed of Diane Carter, very much alive, being escorted into FBI headquarters. Her first words to the cameras, "Tell Daniel to check the safe deposit box, the one with Claire's anniversary date." Lily was already pulling out her IV with unsettling competence. "Aunt Diane left us presents," she informed them matter-of-factly. "The shiny kind that stops bad men." As alarms began blaring across the hospital, Daniel realized two truths simultaneously. One, the golden thread was literally woven through his arteries. Two, Lily hadn't inherited Amelia's heart condition. She'd outgrown it, and that made her the most valuable and dangerous child on Earth. Margaret's hand hovered over her service weapon as the first black SUVs screeched into the ambulance bay. "Daniel," she said slowly, "exactly what did they grow inside you?" Lily answered by placing her small hand on his chest. The glow intensified until their shadows merged on the wall, a single silhouette with two beating hearts. The same symbol etched on the safe deposit key, now burning a hole in Daniel's pocket. The boardroom's floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Seattle's skyline, but all Daniel saw was the reflection of Mason Clark's smirk twisting in the glass. He set his phone on the table screen up, displaying a live feed of Diane Carter's press conference at FBI headquarters. The ticker at the bottom read, "Whistleblower exposes illegal human trials at Willow Medical, CEO implicated." Stability. Daniel tapped the video where Diane held up a vial of golden-hued liquid. "This is Dr. Cole's Second Beat serum, derived from my bone marrow. Patent pending by Gray Harbor's biotech division, authorized by your oversight committee last quarter." The blood drained from Clark's face. Chairman Ellison's fountain pen snapped in his trembling hands. Daniel stood rolling up his sleeves to reveal fresh needle marks along his veins. "While you were worried about tabloids, our labs have been replicating what Lily's body produces naturally. One dose repairs myocardial damage in 72 hours. The military's already offered $2 billion for exclusive rights." He dropped another bombshell. The safe deposit box had contained Claire's research. Her oncology trials at Willow Medical had uncovered regenerative stem cells, which Cole had weaponized. The conference room door burst open. A team of federal agents marched in, followed by Lily holding Margaret's hand. The child wore a tiny power suit instead of hospital scrubs, her hair now neatly braided. "Mr. Clark." An agent clamped handcuffs on the squirming board member. "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit human trafficking. Your emails to Dr. Cole about harvesting the Carter subject were quite illuminating." Lily climbed onto the boardroom table with unsettling grace. When she placed her palm on the polished surface, golden filaments spread through the wood like veins. The projection screens flickered to life, displaying every dirty deal Clark had made with Cole. Daniel addressed the stunned room. "New business item, I'm adopting Lily Carter Wilson as my legal heir. All objections will be treated as admissions of complicity." Outside, news helicopters circled as the golden serum in Diane's vial began pulsing in time with both Daniel's and Lily's heartbeats, visible through their clothing like bioluminescent tattoos. The message was clear. Gray Harbor wasn't just a tech empire anymore. It was the dawn of a new medical revolution. And its heir apparent currently sat cross-legged on the conference table, humming Claire's lullaby, while federal agents hauled away the old guard. As the last cuff snapped closed, Lily smiled at Daniel with Amelia's eyes and Claire's dimples, a living bridge between his past and future. The vote passed unanimously. The atrium's glass walls trembled as Daniel finished speaking the crowd's murmurs, swelling into a wave of stunned silence. Then Lily stepped into the spotlight, small but radiant, in a dress the color of hospital scrubs, clutching the one-eared rabbit. The golden serum in her veins pulsed visibly when she took Daniel's hand, their intertwined fingers casting prismatic light across the ceiling. CNN's medical correspondent was the first to break the silence. "Mr. Carter, are you saying this child's DNA holds the key to your revolutionary cardiac treatment?" Daniel opened his mouth, but Lily answered first. "It's not a treatment," she declared in her clear, high voice. "It's a gift." She held up the rabbit's missing ear, which now glowed with the same golden filaments as Daniel's scar. "Mommy sewed this back together before she died. Now Mr. Daniel's heart sews people up too." The press corps erupted. Phones lit up with alerts as Gray Harbor's stock price skyrocketed. In the chaos, Daniel spotted Mason Clark being escorted from the building in FBI custody, the man's tailored suit now clashing with silver handcuffs. Then came the moment no PR team could have scripted. An elderly reporter from the Times stood slowly, oxygen tank in tow. "Mr. Carter, my cardiologist says I have 6 months." His trembling hand touched his chest. "Would your gift work for someone like me?" The atrium held its breath. Daniel looked at Lily. She nodded solemnly and reached into her pocket, producing a single vial of amber liquid, the one Diane had smuggled from Cole's lab. "Not yet," Daniel said, taking the vial. "But soon." He turned to the cameras, the serum catching the light. "We're building a clinic right here in Seattle. No clinical trials, no profit margins, just healing." He locked eyes with Chairman Ellison in the front row. "Starting with those who need it most." The standing ovation shook the building. By nightfall, the gift was trending globally. Protesters outside Willow Medical chanted Lily's name. And in a hospital room across town, the first candidate for treatment, a 7-year-old with cardiomyopathy, received a golden IV drip as her parents wept. Back in the boardroom, Ellison slid a document across the table. Gray Harbor Foundation for Regenerative Medicine. Articles of Incorporation. Daniel signed without reading, because Lily was already adding her own flourish, a child's wobbly signature beneath his, the letters shimmering briefly before settling into the paper. The dawn of a new era, and this time, they'd build it right. The elevator doors opened to reveal Daniel's penthouse transformed. Gone were the minimalist furniture and cold marble, replaced by a sunlit space where potted ferns brushed against hand-painted murals of the ocean. Lily's missing-eared rabbit sat proudly on the mantel, its repaired ear glowing faintly in a beam of afternoon light. "It's not high anymore," Lily declared, kicking off her shoes. Golden filaments spread from her bare feet across the hardwood, transforming the floors into warm amber planks that pulsed gently with each step. "Now it's alive," Daniel watched in awe as the apartment adapted bookshelves lowering to child height, the stainless steel fridge repainting itself sunflower yellow. Even the intimidating floor-to-ceiling windows frosted slightly at Lily's approach, softening the vertigo-inducing view. Margaret's phone buzzed incessantly with notifications from CPS. "This isn't standard protocol," she murmured, staring as a stray sunbeam solidified into a second rabbit, this one with both ears intact. Lily pressed her palm against the kitchen island. The marble counter rippled like water before reforming into a child-sized baking station, complete with cookie cutters shaped like hearts. "Mommy loved making sugar cookies," she explained matter-of-factly. That's when Daniel noticed the photo frame materializing on the wall, a picture that had never been taken. Amelia stood between him and Lily on a beach at sunset, their hands linked, their shadows merging into one long silhouette. The timestamp read tomorrow. The foundation's first beneficiary arrived that evening, a foster child named Mateo with a congenital heart defect. As Lily placed her hands over his chest, the golden light spread in delicate lacework across his skin. Downstairs in the lobby, a line began forming. Dozens of families, hundreds, all drawn by something they couldn't explain. Margaret finally put away her clipboard. You realize we'll need to rewrite every child care manual in existence. Daniel smiled as Lily demonstrated how the apartment's new breathing walls could hug people when they felt sad. The windows shimmered with bioluminescent tides that mirrored Claire's favorite Maine coastline. Somewhere in the building's transformed infrastructure, the original floor plan still existed. But this was no longer a penthouse. It was the world's first living sanctuary where broken things came to be whole, where lost children found compasses in their palms that always pointed home, where every heartbeat told a story. And on the roof, unnoticed until dawn, a single word had grown across the solar panels in vines of golden light. H-O-P-E. The salt-tinged breeze carried Lily's laughter as she danced ahead, her sundress fluttering like a sail against the Seattle skyline. Daniel watched as Joan Evans' weathered fingers trembled around the seashell her granddaughter had pressed into her palm, the same kind Amelia used to collect as a child. "She's got her mother's rhythm, too," Mark murmured, eyes glistening as Lily spun in giddy circles near the dock. "Same way Amelia would twirl when—" His voice broke as he touched the faded tattoo on his wrist, a tiny heart with AE inked inside. Daniel felt the familiar warmth pulse beneath his scar. Without thinking, he unbuttoned his cuff and rolled up his sleeve. The skin around his transplant incision now bore the same tattoo appeared overnight in golden ink that shimmered when Lily sang. Joan gasped. "That's impossible. We buried Amelia with a matching one." Daniel finished. He pulled out his phone, showing them Claire's last MRI. The scan clearly showed the biologist's identical tattoo in the exact spot where her tumor had been. They were connected long before the transplant. Lily's sudden shriek cut through the revelation. She was crouched by the tide pools, her small hands submerged to the wrists. As they rushed over, the water around her fingers began glowing the same gold as Daniel's serum. Tiny bioluminescent fish darted through the luminous swirls, their scales reflecting patterns that resolved into letters. "She lives in the tides." Mark collapsed to his knees. "Amelia's last words, when they took her off life support." His wife finished the sentence through tears. She whispered, "I'll be where the waves can find me." The harbor bells began ringing inexplicably at 3:16 p.m. Amelia's birth minute. Lily stood, seawater cascading from her arms in liquid light. "Grandma," she said with eerie certainty. "Mommy says to check the pocket." Joan's trembling hands found the hidden compartment in her purse. She'd forgotten about the one sewn into the lining years ago. Inside lay a soggy but intact seashell. When she held it to her ear, the sound wasn't ocean waves. It was Amelia's voice, clear as day, singing, "You Are My Sunshine," the same lullaby currently playing on Daniel's penthouse music box. The same melody Lily hummed in her sleep. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the group huddled together without speaking. Two families made one by loss and miracle, and something science couldn't name. The golden light from Lily's hands spread across the pier, writing words in the planks beneath their feet. "Thank you for keeping your promise." And when Daniel looked up, he could have sworn he saw two women reflected in the harbor waves, one with Claire's auburn hair, one with Amelia's blue eyes, holding hands beneath the surface before dissolving into foam. Lily squeezed his finger. "Don't be sad," she whispered. "They're just making room for us now." Somewhere beyond the dock, a whale breached its spray, catching the sunset in a rainbow arch over the reunited family. The exact image from Amelia's last unsent postcard now framed on Daniel's suddenly not-so-empty refrigerator. The courtroom's antique pendulum clock struck 10:17 a.m., the exact time of Lily's birth, as Judge Wilkins lowered her reading glasses. "This is the most extraordinary guardianship case I've seen in 30 years on the bench." Her gaze lingered on Lily, who was now tracing golden light patterns across the defense table. Then came the twist no one expected. The bailiff rushed in with an urgent message. The judge read it, eyebrows climbing toward her hairline. "It appears we have a biological development." She turned her monitor to show the room a live DNA scan from Seattle Children's Hospital. Lily's cells were currently regenerating the judge's own damaged heart tissue through the screen itself. Margaret's tablet pinged with a notification. "Your Honor, 327 similar cases just appeared in our system. All children who received Dr. Cole's vitamin injections at Willow Clinic are showing the same abilities. Lily stood on tiptoes to whisper to the judge, "You have a OE under your robe. From when your daddy yelled too loud." The room gasped. The exact location of Judge Wilkins' childhood scar was nowhere in public records. The gavel never fell. Instead, the judge removed her judicial robe to reveal something astonishing, a golden filigree of healing tissue spreading across her chest in the exact pattern of Daniel's tattoo. "Miss Leland," she said hoarsely, "prepare emergency custody paperwork for all Willow Clinic children." Then directly to Lily, "Sweetheart, what should we call this new classification of kinship?" Lily didn't hesitate. Heart families. By noon, the courthouse atrium had transformed. Dozens of Willow kids sat cross-legged in a circle, their linked hands generating a luminescent canopy overhead. Parents wept as long missing memories surfaced in the light. A veteran suddenly recalling his donor's favorite baseball team, a grandmother humming a tune her new liver's previous owner had loved. Daniel signed the final guardianship papers with a pen that left golden ink. Across town, Gray Harbor Tower's logo changed in real time, the sterile corporate emblem replaced by a pulsating heart wrapped in bioluminescent vines. And when Judge Wilkins stepped down from the bench to hug her own newly discovered heart grandson, a quiet boy who'd mysteriously known her childhood nickname, the cameras captured something impossible. The courthouse's Lady Justice statue winked. For the first time in history, the scales weren't balanced. They glowed. The kite string thrummed like a plucked heartstring as Daniel knelt in the wet sand. He didn't need to ask what Lily meant. The music box's melody had seamlessly blended with the waves, forming a perfect harmony with the sea's rhythm. But it was the words that caught in his throat. A chorus Claire used to sing now emerging from the ocean itself in Amelia's voice. Joan's hands flew to her mouth. That's the lullaby I sang to Amelia in the NICU." The red kite overhead suddenly changed shape, morphing into a perfect anatomical heart that pulsed with each beat of the tide. Then came the miracle no smartphone could capture. The waves began depositing thousands of seashells at their feet, each etched with the same golden filigree as Daniel's scar. Lily gathered them in her skirt, her laughter ringing like wind chimes. They're for the new kids. Back at the Harbor Heart Center that night, something extraordinary happened. Every Willow child placed their shell against the walls, and the building breathed. The bricks softened into warm adobe. The floors became springy moss. And in the counseling rooms, the chairs molded themselves to hug visitors the way Lily's walls hugged her. The business press finally stopped calling it a vanity project when Daniel unveiled Phase 2. Homes, not shelters, not institutions. Homes that adapted like his penthouse, where stairs became slides for wheelchair users, where walls grew soundproof cocoons for overwhelmed foster kids, where every bedroom ceiling displayed the exact constellation its occupant needed to see. At the dedication ceremony, Lily stood barefoot on the rooftop garden as the first 50 heart families received their keys. The shells around her neck glowed as she whispered to the wind, and suddenly every front door in the complex swung open simultaneously, revealing interiors customized down to the stuffed animals on each bed. The CNN anchor reporting live burst into tears when her microphone picked up the doors singing in unison, "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." That night, as Daniel tucked Lily into bed, she pressed a final shell to his chest. "This one's special," she murmured. "It holds all the love Mommy couldn't give me." The moment it touched his skin, the entire building's side walls exhaling golden dust that settled into every crack and scar, both physical and emotional. Outside, the ocean seemed to still. The waves paused mid-crash. Even the moon hung motionless. In that suspended second, Daniel finally heard the truth in the harmony of waves and music box. This was never about saving Lily. It was about letting her save them. And as the world exhaled and time resumed, the first 50 heart families began their first night in homes that loved them back. While across the city, every church bell, car horn, and wind chime spontaneously played the same 4-note motif, the exact cadence of a healthy heartbeat. The tide receded one final time, revealing what no oceanographer could explain, a perfect heart-shaped tide pool glowing with bioluminescence. Lily waded in without hesitation, the water crystallizing into golden stepping stones with each footfall. At the center, two seashells floated in perfect alignment, one etched with Amelia's initials, the other with Claire's. Daniel stepped into the pool as the first star appeared. The salt water swirled around his ankles, weaving their reflections together, not as man and child, but as dual keepers of a legacy written in heartbeat signatures. Somewhere beneath the waves, two women's laughter echoed. This was never just their story. It was a living covenant. The next morning, workers installing the Harbor Hearts memorial plaque would find the bronze already engraved with unexpected text. Here marks where the world remembered that love never stops beating, that broken things mend stronger, and no one is ever truly gone as long as someone carries the rhythm. And if visitors swore they heard faint piano notes when touching the plaque, or if foster children's scars glowed gold when they pressed their palms to it, well, that was simply science catching up to magic. As for Lily, she grew up to found the first university where buildings taught classes through song, where textbooks rewrote themselves in students' native languages, and where every graduation diploma was inked with living cells that healed as they were held. But that's another story. For now, the tide rises, the music box plays, and somewhere on a beach at sunset you can still see them, a man and a little girl, hand in hand, watching the waves write love letters. From mothers who invented eternity